but he will always target
That's right.
the area where we are weakest. So
Yeah.
one, not knowing where we are weakest
Yeah.
is one more weakness that the enemy will
That's right.
exploit.
Yeah.
And
Knowledge
so
of self.
if in a particular period of our lives, the whole realm of human sexuality is our weak spot,
Yeah.
then there's where we need to grow in virtue and build up our
That's right.
kind of reinforce that wall around us,
Yeah.
that's protecting us from the invasion of the enemy, because
That's
he
right.
will colonize and exploit any weakness,
Yeah.
because he is ultimately a coward. Your children don't need to be looking for pornography.
That's right.
In the world we're living in right now, pornography is looking for your children, and it's just looking for the right doorway to step
right.
into their life. And so parents need to be super vigilant.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk, the podcast of Human Life International. I am Therese McCrystal, standing in for Lisa O'Hare at the moment. This is Brendan Gormley from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Father Philip Kemmy from Rafo Diocese. And today we're going to talk about pornography. It's a topic of deep discussion all around the world at the moment, especially in light of the recent release of The Sound of Freedom. There's a lot of issues around the whole topic of pornography that it goes into a lot of other fields. So we're going to touch on a few of those today. We're going to hear Brendan's story, and we're going to hear from Father Philip with the voice of the church. And I've got a little bit from the catechism that we're going to use today as well. So hang with us, and I hope you enjoy the show. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Brendan, would you like to start us off there and just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from? And
yeah, so as you said earlier, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised Catholic, from a very, faith was always present in the home growing up, but that didn't necessarily protect me from the scourge of my generation, which is pornography.
Right.
It was a case of curiosity killed the cat. I was curious and went exploring, and found more than I was bargaining for. And that started off a battle that lasted for a couple of years, from right around the age of 13, all the way through to when I was 17.
Right.
And just so happens that, it's as I'm going through this battle that I'm also coming to a deeper understanding of my faith, and coming to have a deeper relationship with God. And so it's constantly this struggle between, essentially, as scripture puts it, the way of life versus the way of death.
Right. Okay.
And it was just something that was sort of the main focus of this battle with porn, was sort of the main focus of a lot of my life for those years. I'd say even going as far as influencing me to switch from homeschooling to going to the local public school, because I recognized that that I myself, as a homeschooler, had too much time on my hands.
Okay.
And I didn't have the discipline to be able to handle that well, along with other factors that went into switching. But it was one of the things that influenced me to transfer. And so it's a battle that I, praise God, took seriously. But yeah, the part that really stands out to me from this whole struggle would be, I went to World Youth Day 2016 in Poland.
Okay.
And the priest that was leading our group, as we were going, pulled us together and said, okay, this is a pilgrimage, so go with intentions. And it was one for a national level one, a community level one, personal for yourself, personal for another. I'll be honest, I can't remember what 3 out of the 4 were.
Yeah.
But the personal for myself was that I see an end to this battle with porn.
Wow, what a grace.
And so at the opening mass of World Youth Day 2016, standing in a field, it was already one of the most cool experiences of my life, because you're at mass with, I think that one was 1.5 million people.
Wow.
And you're just standing in the middle of the field, and the main celebrant was, I believe, the Archbishop of Krakow, and he's about yay tall, like a good kilometer away.
Yeah.
And you've got flags from practically every nation on earth and everything. But yeah, so communion time rolls around, and I go up, receive Jesus in the Eucharist, go back to our spot and do the sort of obligatory kneel down and pray.
Yeah.
And well, after a few minutes of that, I'm like, okay, I've had enough time with kneeling in a wet field. So I stand back up, and there's music blaring over the loudspeakers. So I join in with singing, and it was a song that was well within my range. And then suddenly I realized, hey, that highest note, I can't hit that. The second highest note, I also can't hit that either. And so I could just tell that there was something happening inside of me. And I almost felt like dragged back down to my knees. So I go down and I enter into like the most intense time of prayer that I've ever had. And I was just saying over and over again, take it, destroy it, take it, destroy it. And in an instant, I could feel I'm inclined to call it an addiction, but at the very least, the serious habit. Yeah. Like all the temptation towards it, everything like that, like I felt it being taken out of me. Wow. And I knew in that moment that this battle was done, and that it was not me that had won the victory, but rather it was Jesus who had won it.
Wonderful.
And here we are a full 7 years later, and praise God, I'm living in freedom.
Wonderful. Thank God.
Yeah, and it's just been beautiful, partially because I didn't realize how much this battle that I was having with pornography was like staring into a headlight. Okay. And I could see this major moral and spiritual and all the other things issue that was part of my life that I wanted to get out. And now that that's gone, I can finally see past that bright light to see all the other ways that sin has a hold on me. And by the grace of God, because just as it wasn't me that won the battle with porn, it's not going to be me. It's not going to be me on my own that wins the battle with all of these other sins. So now I'm like able to actually make more progress in the spiritual life. Wonderful. And journey on the road to sainthood, please God.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Thank you, Brendan. Great. I don't feel like anything else to say. You hit on an awful lot of things there. And I think, well, the two most significant for me are that Christ won the victory and that you now live in freedom. And I think that's the call on all of our hearts, on parents, on children, on teenagers, on missionaries, on priests, everyone. We're all called to live in that freedom. Have you anything to add yourself?
The glorious freedom of the children of God, as St. Paul talks about. This is a great story of hope. And there are so many people who are despairing because they're in the grips of this thing.
That's right.
So that's a great message of hope.
That's right.
Brendan, as wonderful as he is nothing special in the sense of like, if the Lord did it for him, he can do it for anyone. And that's a message that needs to be over and over again reiterated. Freedom is desirable. Freedom is possible. And the taste of freedom is a new way of living a free life, and it's just beautiful to hear a testimony of that, which is so badly needed. Great. And you spoke about being brought up Catholic, homeschooling and all of that, and I often say this to parents, your children don't need to be looking for pornography. in the world we're living in right now, pornography is looking for your children, and it's just looking for the right doorway to step into their life. And so parents need to be super vigilant with that, because it's there. It's knocking on everybody's door through so many different ways, and it just takes your child to open that door out of curiosity, or inadvertently, or with a friend that they have who says, look at this, or and it's not to be obsessive, and you can't lock your children up under the stairs and say they'll be fine, I'll not bring. We have to live in this world, but it's just the of being vigilant there, so that we maintain their innocence for as long as possible. Because certainly there is a massive move in our world at every level of society to take the innocence of children away as early as possible, and that can only be to the destruction of future generations, who will be ensnared and enslaved and not living the glorious liberty of the children of God, that freedom that Christ came to give us all. So just to be vigilant as a parent is really, really important.
I think something else that Brendan said that struck my heart, certainly, I have 9 children, so life is busy, but you can forget what each of them is up to while you're dealing with what I would say the loudest screamer or the hardest need, whatever. But that you said that you had too much time on your hands. And do you remember the phrase from years ago, the devil makes work for idle hands? And I know that we as children, when we were in Ireland for the summer holidays, we were always given jobs to do, work to do, go down to the field, take the hay, take the food down to the men in the fields, whatever it was, we were occupied. Now, we didn't have phones in those times, but now when I go out, even when I'm driving, I just see people looking at their phones all the time. And I hear my dad's voice and my grandparents go, have you nothing better to be doing? And it's like, no, actually, because I actually haven't been taught how to use my time better. And not just in the spiritual, not just in the prayers and the holy exercises of the church and moral life, but just in day-to-day living. You know, are you playing a sport? Are you visiting friends? Are you serving someone? Are you visiting an old person? You know, have we forgotten how to occupy ourselves as Christians in the world, you know, and have holy occupations and just good, wholesome occupations? Do you paint? Do you draw? Do you read? You know, and talking about reading as well, we were discussing earlier that for girls, perhaps more so than boys, reading can be an inroad to pornography with literary porn, romantic stories, and what it can do in girls' minds who are so imaginative, they can be desiring to live in this imaginary world. They can desire that character, whoever that is. It's no longer Mr. Darcy or whoever, or Willoughby, whatever, from the old stories. It's these new romantic characters who are far from honourable, who are far from gracious. And yet girls fall into this expectation of what is expected of them as girls, but what a good guy looks like, and they're far from good guys. So I think for guys, it's not written in stone that this is the only way. Guys, it's more visual, but for girls, I think there's definitely a word and an audible porn, that it's story, it's hearing stories. Girls love to natter and hear the story of this date or that date. That, you know, they say, I want to hear the juicy bits. It's actually, no, don't ask for juicy bits. You know, ask for the holy bits, ask for the noble bits, ask for the holy relationships, find out how they started. And that's one thing we've done as a couple over the years. We've shared our story many times in the hopes to wake up to people that there is another way of dating. There is another way of relating with people. Brendan, what would you say when you came out, when you were freed in that moment, would you say then there was a new way of life to live, or a new way did you need to learn to occupy yourself to, like when you came home, what happened then?
Yeah, so I didn't really need to learn how to occupy myself, because I had, like, as part of the ongoing struggle, I had taken a lot of those steps to sort of, like, I was doing what I could to fight against it, right? And some of that came in the form of, like, you know, various recreational activities, things like that. And I'd say the main difference between before and after was I was able to actually do it.
Right.
But I think one of the this might not be actually answering your question, but
Okay.
I at least want to plug it. And that's like actually praying.
Right.
Because I had been consuming a lot of content by some excellent people that are just like have done wonderful things in the battle against pornography. So from groups like Fight the New Drug.
So when you say consuming, you mean by podcasts?
Yeah, podcasts, listening to talks that are on
okay.
YouTube, visiting dedicated websites that are about educating and equipping people to sort of stand against pornography. So Fight the New Drug, which, I mean, if we can talk about that a little bit more later, but so Fight the New Drug, Matt Fradd, especially before Pints with Aquinas really took off, that was sort of one of his main focuses.
Who also had a big turnaround at a World Youth Day.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, it's not, World Youth Days are a good thing. I had a big turnaround at a World Youth Day, so
yeah.
Shout out to the church.
Amen to that.
Jason and Kristalina Everett as well, do wonderful work on all of that.
Yeah. So I'd been consuming a lot of that content, and looking back, I think one of the things that particularly stands out to me, there's a talk that Matt Fradd gave that you should be able to find it on YouTube, where he's talking about like the smooth stones that we can take to fight against Goliath.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
and and so, you know, I'd listened to this, and it was like, okay, for like practical points, and then I saw the last one as like, okay, of course he's going to throw that in, and it was like essentially have a prayer life, and actually pray. Because at that point, sort of the limit of what I did was I would say the rosary, but sort of like just as like, okay, if I say the words enough, then I won't fall into sin. And that's, first off, not how the rosary works. But then also, like, I just wasn't cultivating anything outside of that. And I think looking back, I think it's really it's right around the time that I have this big encounter at World Youth Day that I start to take it seriously and be like, okay, Jesus, I need to actually talk to you.
Yeah.
I need to actually have a relationship with you. So definitely don't discount like actually sitting down and praying.
Yeah, take your time with Jesus.
Yeah, because like, I don't care who it is, you're not going to be strong enough to properly do it entirely on your own. You're going to need to call in his help. And like, as Catholics, you're going to like, please God, you're going to go to him anyway when you fall. This could be for anything. You're going to go to him when you fall to seek forgiveness.
That's right.
But you don't have to wait for when you fail to go to him.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You can invite him into the battle before you fall.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Because if you look at today, now one of the questions we had is that our children and young adults are being assailed with visuals of pornography. What we would call pornography 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago now is not being classed as pornography. It's just advertising, or it's just marketing. Whether it's for a car or a toothpaste or a cake, whatever it is, there's just naked bodies advertising these products. So our eyes are being assailed by this. So one of the questions would be, how would you help young people train themselves for that battle? You know, you mentioned about going to Jesus before you fall. So what physical ways can we train, you know, as in what can our young people do physically themselves to live a purer life, to embrace a purer life?
Yeah. Well, I tend to be much more intellectually minded.
Right.
And so as far as like what physical things we can do,
well, even intellectually, what would you do?
Yeah, so I think that John Paul II's theology of the body has so much to offer, and it was trendy for a while to talk about TOB, as it's referred to as shorthand, in Catholic circles, in youth ministry. I think that's kind of fallen off in the past couple of years. I think that might be partially due to people saying, okay, well, we've already discussed everything that TOB has to offer. I had the blessing of taking a class entirely about it in college, and I am very we haven't even scratched the surface of what all there is that he had to say, much less what else you can glean from continuing the work that he started. And so I think
he being Pope John Paul II.
The work that John Paul II started, and I think one of the great things that is very present in his works is that the body is good.
That's right.
And we have this weird cultural thing starting with the sexual revolution back in the 60s, where you have a bunch of people that are coming, you can look back to the Victorian era where there's a suppression of the body and seeing sexuality as we don't want to touch that. And so kind of the last vestiges of that are thrown off with the sexual revolution, where suddenly it's, no, the body is good, but from a secular standpoint. And then you get this reaction that kind of comes to life in what's referred to as purity culture. And a lot of people have been very damaged by their experience of purity culture. And essentially, if you fail, you are damaged goods and you are worthless. That sort of thing. There's been a lot of legitimate hurt that people have felt from that. And sort of the response to the sexual revolution from this angle was, okay, yeah, the body's bad. But what JP2 is offering is, no, the body is good, because God created you not just as a soul that's trapped in a body, because that's a heresy that the church had, the church defined that as a heresy. I forget, it's one of the early ones. Within the first 500 years, it gets suppressed as no, it's wrong to view it as you are a soul that's trapped within a body and you're just waiting to die so you can be released and be free. No, but God made us as body-soul composites. And so because of that, the body is good and is a gift from him. And so it's also...
And all the body functions are good.
That's right.
And all the, everything. God created the entire systems of our bodies, reproductive systems included. Hormones were created by God.
Believe it or not.
Attraction between the sexes is a gift from God. God could have created the bringing about of the next generation to be a not so pleasant experience, but he wanted us to rejoice in the creation of a new human being. So the marital act and all of our sexual capacities are imprinted with joy and goodness and rejoicing by design
and
from
hope
God.
for a future, that it actually is futuristic, you know.
So
this
these are good, and so
in,
and that kind of that blows the idea of body bad, soul good, or the ghost in the machine out of the water. And of course, it's just preposterous for us as Christians to say the body is evil when God takes flesh. And
that's the ultimate sanctification of the human body, isn't it?
And so the idea that the body is good and the bodily functions are good, but anything good can be misused. I mean, I've often used the idea of a knife, and I can take a knife and I can cut a piece of my birthday cake with that knife and share it out with everyone. Or I can stab somebody in the chest with the knife. Is the knife evil? No. I have used it out of its proper purpose and context, and therefore it becomes destructive or downright evil that I use this. And you mentioned about the purity culture and your damaged goods. Well, no, you may be damaged by sin in any of its form, but you still remain good. So, and
I think it's important to say that, because as Catholics we have the sacraments, so that we all sin, but we can all avail of the sacrament of confession. We can go to reconciliation and go to Jesus and beg him for that help again and again and again. And the thing I think that shocks some young people is that we older people are still going to confession, and we still need our, Pope John Paul used to go to confession. I don't know how often, but it was very often.
Yeah.
And a lot of young
people, every week.
Yeah, so a lot of young people are like, what did he go to confession for? It's like, because we all sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. So I think it's important for people to know who are stuck in this lifestyle. It's one area of sin. It's one area of weakness. Everybody has something. Everybody has a weakness. Everybody has a battle. The devil will just chip away at some area in our lives and our souls. And all he
will always go for the weakest spot.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, your weakness might not be my weakness, might not be Brendan's weakness, but he will always target the area where we are weakest. So one, not knowing where we are weakest is one more weakness that the enemy will exploit. And so if in a particular period of our lives, the whole realm of human sexuality is our weak spot, then there's where we need to grow in virtue and build up our kind of reinforce that wall around us that's protecting us from the invasion of the enemy, because he will colonize and exploit any weakness because he is ultimately a coward, and he will not go for your strength. He will go for where you're weak.
Well, I'm actually going to read something from the Catechism now, because I think this is the answer to that for young souls. The Catechism talks about chastity as a self-mastery, that we all have this propensity to weakness. Whereas the Catechism is talking to us about our decision for good. And it says here in 2339, chastity includes an apprenticeship in self-mastery. I love that phrase, which is a training in human freedom. The alternative is clear. Either man governs his passions and finds peace, which is like your own story, or he lets himself be dominated by them and becomes unhappy, which is what you talked on, Father. Man's dignity, therefore, requires him to act out of conscious and free choice, as moved and drawn in a personal way from within, and not by blind impulses in himself or by mere external constraint. And then this last bit, man gains such dignity when, ridding himself of all slavery to the passions, he presses forward to his goal by freely choosing what is good, and by his diligence and skill, effectively secures for himself the means suited to this end. So I think that just talks about the battle, the decision, that we have to exercise our intellect, we have to engage our intellect and our will. And it's fantastic that you had your conversion, for want of a better word, your liberating moment. But any of us, God will anoint us or grace us in those moments. We have to then know what he's calling us to. We have to, how can we know what God is calling us to if we're not talking to him? And you said, that's what you said.
And Therese, that quotation there from the Catechism, it begins by, and if we were speaking for a younger or honest, though the struggle with chastity is not, just the preserve of the young people. That's chastity is a lifelong project. And to keep always vigilant in that area. But it talks there about apprenticeship and training. Who gives the apprenticeship? Who gives the training? If it's the world, if you're leaving it up to the mass media and the world's influence, that's a real bad apprenticeship. And so particularly for parents, that's where that apprenticeship and training starts. But you might sort of think, well, I can't train them for, at 7 years of age, this whole area, I'm not going to open it up to them. No, but you can train them for self-mastery in all the other areas of the life that has nothing to do with the sexual realm. Because if you grow virtue in one area, it's like the rising tide lifts all boats. And so they'll have this kind of idea in them that, I have a higher goal, and sometimes you have to really strive and renounce to get to that higher goal. And they will see that then when it's age appropriate to move into the whole area of training in chastity, they will already have done a lot of the groundwork. There, or the parents will have done a lot of groundwork with them in that training and that apprenticeship, because the home is the apprenticeship for life.
The school of love, as it's called.
And actually, to speak to that real quick, at around the time that I was like, the at the worst in that battle with pornography, I could barely walk past a vending machine without feeling like the need to stop and buy a bottle of pop. Like the sheer amount of money, especially when I had no actual income, the sheer amount of money that I spent on vending machines when I wanted something sweet, but like I didn't need it. But I didn't have any self-control to say no to that one little thing. How the heck am I supposed to then die to myself and say, okay, here is a something that is rooted ultimately in a good desire, a desire that the Lord has given me, but the only way that I am seeing a way to fulfill that desire this time is through this like super twisted expression. If I can't say no to a bottle of pop, how the heck am I going to say no to something that is so much more powerful than that?
Yeah. That's very telling. That I think, like you said, whatever stage someone comes to their faith, whether it's children that you're taking care of or an adult conversion or an older person, whatever, we're all called to take those first few steps of the retraining, that self-mastery, that apprenticeship. And it's little by little. And we chip away at the sin. We take an aggressive stance against the sin, but we're like cutting the roots of a bad weed that's taken a grip of us. And we're just cutting and cutting and cutting. You go to the root. You don't chop off the flowers and the things at the top. You go to the root and you find out and you block those holes. And if it's your phone that's causing it, get rid of that. If it's your TV that's causing it or your computer, you look at these things and you have custody of the eyes and custody of the heart and custody of the mouth. And you just ask the Lord to come into all those areas of your life. And I would agree with you that as we're raising the children, when you're teaching them to say no to something in that moment, you're teaching them that self-constraint, that self-mastery of just, no, not just now, no, you can't have the sweet just yet. No, you can't have this just yet. And it's learning that there is a place and a time for things. And that, like you said, if you can do it in the small things, in the everyday life early on, the bigger battles don't have to come, actually. You're a soldier more prepared for battle.
And I think something that has been really useful for me, and I think is something that could be also really useful for young people that are coming to an age where they're going to have to start really entering into the fray, is you say no so that you can say yes.
Okay. So
with with those, really minor things, right? You say no. Like I don't know if you've ever heard of I forget the proper name of it, but it was an experiment where they had a bunch of like 5-year-olds and they left them in a room with one marshmallow, and they said, okay, we'll come back. We'll leave you alone for 10 minutes. We'll come back. If the marshmallow is still there, we'll give you another one. You can have both of them then.
Okay.
It could be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
The child in that moment was saying no to the marshmallow because through saying no in that moment, they're saying yes to 2 marshmallows.
Yeah.
Right? It could be something as simple as that, or all the way up to I'm saying no to this like digital adultery.
Yeah.
So that I can say yes to a full relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
So the no is always for the sake of a yes.
Yeah.
Have the freedom to have that yes.
Yeah, to have the freedom to have that yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think we might actually close there. I think that's a great place. So we would pray for our viewers and our listeners that, as you've heard today's stories, that we pray for everyone to enter into that place of freedom with Christ and to know that it is available. We have the sacraments, we have the Eucharist available to give us our daily strength. Go to the Word of God, go to the voice of the church. And that would be the one last thing I would say, is that if you're not familiar with the teachings of the church, no matter what age you are, start. And you begin to listen to a voice that you've never heard before, and it will help you recognize the voice that is not from God and the voice that is not from the church. The more you become familiar with her, and the more you become familiar with Jesus in prayer, other voices become far more obvious, I would say. So thanks for listening. Tune in next time. If you've got any comments or questions, get in touch on comment@letstalk.show. Thanks very much. God bless. Bye-bye.